for something else. Will not be used for a house.
But you need to tie them down to it. It's gotta be on a contract. This is not for resident, it is for an office
But,
Or is it camp house?
or something.
see, at one time, one of the property owners that bought property indicated it's really in the contract. He asked if they could use the house temporarily as an office, and it was granted. The company has not done any work yet out there on their property. I don't know how binding, or how committed that commitment was made with that company.
Was
So
it
they
binding?
asked
Not
Mr.
right.
Pettis, that they could use it as an office temporarily until they set up their own.
So this plant services, that they own, that they don't own it, but is that their property or is this, I don't understand.
It's the property around it.
Around it.
And Brad Moore, that's what I did with her.
Yeah.
Okay.
The property sits on just 2 acres.
Okay,
That
we,
is not sold.
That is not.
we have, the Terry think, express his opinion, anyone else?
I don't think we need to get in the rental business.
Thankful, twice, 2 people,
I would,
3.
Did you have a motion, right?
We have it before for consideration and action, and I've heard that we don't lease it, and I've heard that we want to sell it, so if you want to make a motion to that effect, that we do place it on the market, and then, one thing I want to throw out here is at this point with these costs that we see to present this project, for these prices that we're selling these for, we're not coming close to even recouping our cost.
You know, they get your construction costs back.
Can I share something with you on that?
You may?
Three-Way Trucking has the very beginning, and then they bought 9.3 acres. We closed today on 5 acres at $110,000.
Who is it?
Three-Way Trucking. They bought the track behind them. Tomorrow we close on the other part of that, which is 4.3 at $107,000. And they bought it at. So my recommendation is that you don't price anything at $5,000 with the market being the way it is right now. There's a realtor down the road from that house that's selling that property, I believe, for $279,000.
Well, first of all, and I've said this in other meetings, that when you sell property, you appraise property and you understand what you're selling at appraisal value. And this basically never occurred in any of these transactions. And we know that the property has been sold for more.
These people are coming in paying cash.
Right.
Okay, they don't, no financing, nothing. Y'all can make quick, easy. money.
So on any of the properties from now on, whether it be Veterans Park, wherever, they must be appraised. It's worth our money to get the properties
so
appraised.
that, this transaction occurred since this board has taken over?
It was resold.
Well,
It's
It
resale.
was resold, it wasn't our
purchased in the
sale.
previous.
yeah. it was
They
not-
bought it at
Oh,
5 and
oh.
sold it at.
In other words, the company that owns Three-Way Trucking bought the front parcel and bought the second parcel and back two. They were gonna do 2 different operations, I believe. Well, they stayed with the one on the front and
Sold off then.
pulled out the other one. So that's when they said, well, let's sell it. And that's what the mayor's saying, that they have sold it.
Good realtor.
What's this, I know? Where they were.
Is there any other discussion on what the committee kind of make a possible motion regarding this? or-
With restrictions, I guess.
Yeah, well, definitely, I know that. That would be up to the person, or persons that are interested. They want to put a business.
What's the pleasure of the board, keep it moving forward?
I make a motion that we, sell the house and the 2 acres at, current market values with the restriction, no private residence, it would be commercial use only.
Okay,
I'll second
we have a motion and a second that we list the property for sale, described as a 2-acre tract with a residence on it, and that we're going to want to try to list it for fair market value, and with the restriction of no residential, operations out of it. And if I can add to that an amendment, and in all other, setback easements and all that could be appropriate to that tract.
that. What about minerals?
And the minerals will have, and that would be within the minerals that we reserve, the minerals, and, we do the surface release.
And the water well stays with the property, or?
The mineral stays with
No,
FEDT.
the water well,
The water,
The water.
because that's a
Goes
big
with the
plus,
property.
it'll bring you more money.
They get a bonus,
I have a motion and a second.
which are,
Do we have any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passed. Item C, discussion and consideration on board recommendation on the 6 acres be purchased by Laredo Hydrotech for original property with designated be taken from the green belt area or to offer them an alternative track instead. Now then, clarification, we already have a contract on that with them that we actually extended time before last. So now what we're trying to do is more specifically to delineate and designate the specific 6 acres.
yes, and like I had indicated, when the discussions took place, Mr. Pettit was still there, and eventually the 2 sites that are, if you look at the map, they're the back 2 lots on the left-hand side. These are the, that Hydrotech are in the process of purchasing. They needed an additional 6 acres. And I believe in their conversation, Mr. Pettit indicated that in the greenbelt, if you go in right in back of Full Bore Company, he suggested taking out 6 acres out of that portion in the greenbelt. Right here. And my concern is that we should leave the greenbelt alone, because you may have problems, you know, you don't have any, we haven't had any rain, but you never know when we'll get a drench. And if we do, it's gonna create problems, because you're gonna have 6 acres in the greenbelt that are gonna be causing some problems. My suggestion is that on the far end, to the right-hand side, as that road crosses, there is a vacant lot that there's been very little inquiries in which.
Could you point that out, Brown, which one you're talking about?
This one,
Maybe this goes
yeah, this one right here,
on the back side.
on the back side.
Representative Gasfrac.
Yeah, right in back of Gas Frac. Now, as Mr. Heimer indicated, I think where it's got Cardinal, that's where it ends right there. Somewhere around there in that corner there is where I think the retention pond will be located. The big retention pond will be right in the greenbelt area. And then you have one right in the top corner where F&W Electric is. In the corner is a small pond that TxDOT has indicated that they want theirs. So,
Would that be along the highway or is
it's just like a,
Brown, if I can, you just talked about, here's interest, this is one for small one,
yeah,
for Rancho Grande, here's in the conservation area,
the big one.
it's a big one, and then in the back corner
Yeah.
with
the
the,
small one.
with the other one.
It's either gonna be at the far back corner or possibly, in the front, one of the two.
We just need to approach them around about.
Yeah, and I mentioned it to Ms. Rodriguez, who is the person that is working with the companies, and she said that she felt that the company wouldn't have any problems if we offered something elsewhere.
I imagine, because I would suspect this is a lot more valuable property than in the Greenbelt too, though.
And that, flood study pretty much indicated the whole area.
Yeah, yeah,
Do you have that survey that, was done on that part where he already cut that 6 acres out?
yeah.
We already did the bill
survey,
for it.
yeah, yeah.
Did it indicate any flood area on that or not? The marking that did that survey?
Yeah, we did.
We've already paid for the survey to have that 6 acres cut out of that conservation area.
But if we, if we carve that out, what does that do to the floodplain study? I'm wondering what it does with the drainage, if it would have an effect on it.
Well, wasn't the study done before they did the 6 acres?
Yes. So if you put something there.
Change the
that's
number.
up the whole-
Yeah.
So that's why, even if you did a survey, you're probably still better off putting it in a good spot, because that's just going to mess up with that.
See, that's what we don't know, if the flood study and the water drainage study, is if they, no, he didn't do the flood delineation on that. Is if the flood study, if they did that continuing upon as if the entire property was gonna be off asphalted? Or if they, I'm not familiar with what they did, or if they asphalted everything except for the retention pond? We don't know.
Well, I guess that's the next thing that we really need to find out. Is because if that property is not going to affect the water issue, then
And it's not in a flood zone to
Right.
prevent them from doing anything.
why not just leave it? But we probably need to get some clarification on the flood, the drainage plan, just to make sure that that's not going to have a negative effect on what was done in the drainage plan. Because right now, the county has the drainage plan. So we still might be better off.
I don't think you can build, I don't know how.
And Harry's calling it 5, not 6.
I don't
Yeah,
think you
yeah,
can
it's
build.
5 acres.
He's calling it 5.
Fine.
5, 6, or
It's like
something.
that, it's like that land that y'all have over here in,
Really, really good to do that.
that's flood area. You can't build out there.
I do believe that I think it'd be better to move it. We can always, you could always, if things work out and it's looking great, and you could always bring something in there if it was limited to it.
You can build a park for the companies.
So we're going to see.
We're consideration on the board recommendation on the 6 acres, but it sounds like that is supposed to be 5 acres.
Well,
It's still not such a flood zone.
Your contract brother reads 6 and your survey brother reads 5.
You had a contract on that original, what it was supposed to be,
on the original, 6 acres.
but why did you 5 on this survey?
It might be because, you know, that, they didn't want.
If I can show you, he showed me a picture of from the Berry Partners drainage report here, and this is the area we're talking about. And if you remember the survey that Mr. Martinez did, he comes down in here, across here, and kind of comes in this area. Whether it's in or not of this pond retention area, I can't delineate, determine that situation, but it is gonna be very close if you remember that. So it might behoove us to move it like you said. I'm not a very good poster child anyway. You see the track here? So do we want to consider offering them an alternative track?
That's gonna be a problem.
We don't need any problems.
That's not any problem.
Andy? Something else later on.
Hey, Fred?
You know, Larry did the study there, he should be able to answer that real quick.
Well, you might be able to, but he doesn't have to overlay, and it takes some work, Fred, for him to overlay this.
My
into that
understanding
field.
was that it was not in the retention pond area.
No. Now, what I understand you to say is the part that we're thinking of, that's being discussed, maybe giving them alternative that you recommend, Ralph, is in this tract, identified as tract D in this survey here.
Do we know if that, laying that 6 acres over there, or 5 acres, whatever it is, if it affects anything?
Within the flood zone drainage? We know that in the flood map, see if I can find that, I know that that retention pond that they proposed for that is on that tract.
You know, one point, I don't think the county's gonna accept you selling the 6 acres in the Greenbelt. Anyway, I mean, we talked about it, the cows come home, they're not gonna do it.
Here's a,
It's not good business, period.
if you can, this is actually the picture, this is the highway, the entrance going down here, cross section. Here's a small retention pond, here's F&W property, here's a big retention pond, and you can see it comes up here pretty substantially. And then this retention pond is not on the back corner as I thought, it's up at the front. So that's going to, and there, I can't tell, it looks like there's a drainage, proposed variable width drainage easement.
It's the road. You know, it goes all the way to the end.
I beg to differ with you, Ralph, but here's your road,
Okay.
and then there is this
Oh, yeah, okay.
proposed
I see.
drainage easement right here that's going to front the whole tract. So before we even make decisions there, we need to have a discussion, as Jason was suggesting possibly, that we find out if we do offer them an alternative, it wouldn't affect this one as well. So if we tell them this tract, we got that, and we're trying to get this approved with the county right now. I can thumb through here if you have any questions, but that's just trying to provide the information I see it. So what is this proposal? That we follow your suggestions, that we, before we move forward, that we get with Larry Haverty and selling off any of these tracts, the 5 acres within the Greenbelt conservation area, or that back corner would affect the drainage?
Well, and the other issue too, if we sell that, that might lock us out from that lower part anyway, if it has that, if there's a drainage culvert there. In other words, 50% of that whole property may not be accessible if you sold too much of that front.
Or not.
part.
And you're gonna have to, see what was presented to the county, because if they're looking at this being a whole, and they're considering their plans of what they want in their drainage study and so and so, they're not gonna allow us to come sell 6 acres out. Okay?
You're gonna hurt.
I think the best alternative would be to move it, but I think we're just gonna have to get more information, so.
And if we move it over here, you're gonna need like this, we cut 6 out of this thing, you're already losing a bunch because of the pond, and this, you're gonna have it looking like, it's gonna cut your value down to open to what it, right?
I'll make a motion to table item C until we receive more information.
I have a motion and a second that we table discussion consideration on board recommendation for 6 acres to be purchased by Laredo Hydrotech. Original property was designated to be taken from the Greenbelt area, subject to further information. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of tabling item C, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passed.
Mr. Vice President, I ask a question on the agenda. I know we have a gentleman here, this is up to you, of course, but would y'all like to consider moving that item up for this gentleman so we can actually accept the rest?
If there's no objection, we will step out of Robert's rules and follow this and allow, go to item J. Item J is presentation by Jeff Byers, professional landman regarding industrial park acreage on potentially doing a mineral lease agreement on said property. Mr. Jeff Byers, welcome to the Board of Economic Development.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the kindness. If you don't mind, I will speak all day. I don't really know where we are on this. I sent over documents last week. Have y'all had an opportunity to review them, or?
They don't have the, I just made a copy and I haven't had time to. You got a copy of it?
I have. I've prepared a copy for myself, and I have one extra.
I can run out.
What did it cover, Jeff, in general?
Basically, it is as much as it possibly can be, a standard oil, gas, and mineral lease. Taking the original, the legal description, it includes the 2 acres of land that you just proposed to sell, assuming that you maintain and reserve the mineral rights on that. And the second track is the 305.36 acres minus the save and accept the 2 acres that the house is on, and the 9.30 acres that was sold to GNS Investments where the minerals were not reserved. So total acreage being 294.06 acres of land.
There's also the 10 acres that Freeway has, they have their mineral rights also.
Which one?
Three-way
The
truck.
Freeway.
Oh, okay. I was not aware of that. We would need to amend the legal description. Okay. So all of the acreage owned by Three-Way Trucking, there is no mineral reservation there? And I could be dead wrong on this, but I have to assume that this corporation's intent in reserving the minerals was perhaps to explore the possibility of an oil, gas, or mineral lease. If that's not something y'all are remotely interested in, I can call it a day. But is that your intention, or your hope, or your desire?
Yes. What was the amount?
The amount mentioned in this lease is $750 per acre for a 3-year primary term. It is $750 again for a 2-year option term. And it is a 1/5 royalty for all depths down to the Eagleford. Anything below the Eagleford would be a 3/16 royalty. Anything below the stratigraphic equivalent of 7,400 feet. So In consideration of where this property lies and what it's being used for, we've added a surface use clause, that there can be, no surface operations within 500 feet of any existing structures, that are leased herein without the permission of the lessor. So I'm just trying to cover your bases in that you don't own surface, or you maintain some surface. In most cases, the surface has been sold and you don't have rights to that surface. And, you know, we don't wanna, you know, obstruct the business that this corporation is trying to do.
And who is the company?
It's Talisman Energy.
Now, the property never was leased prior, was it?
No, not that I've
Some
seen.
years ago, I'm sure.
I mean, not since, I mean, I only went back to like 82, but yeah.
Do you know what percentage of mineral we do own out there? I don't know.
I don't, no, but I was assuming you owned 100%. There was no reservation from George Martin, so I don't know. But this lease agreement does stipulate that prior to payment, we have 60 days to do title research to determine the exact ownership, because we have the fiduciary responsibility to make sure the correct parties get paid. And that pending the results of that title research, you would be paid, if you did not own 100%, you would be paid according to your mineral ownership.
Is it possible to lease the Eagle Ford and reserve the deeper depths?
What your question, Ray?
Is it possible, are there leases where you can just lease down to the 7,400? Or set it up whatever they call it, Eagle Ford depth, and reserve the bottom? For the second, third, like the appraisal structure. That's,
Reserved for another lease, is that what you're saying?
he leases a totally different thing. Or to them.
Yeah, we wouldn't be interested in that, but it certainly is possible. That's certainly something you can do.
Most people now are reserving the bottom.
What is your timeline on trying to do something like this? As soon as possible?
It's difficult for me to say. I can tell you that this offer is on the table and good throughout this week. I don't anticipate it going away anytime soon, but just our history in Wilson County, we started leasing in this area last May. We've acquired some 80,000 acres, and they're at the point where they feel like they're probably good. We stopped leasing in this area in December. They told us that they'd acquired all the land that they wished to at that point, and they called us back in the middle of March and said, there's a small area east of Polk we'd like to look at. And this area is in that area of interest. And so I've tried to undergo the process of contacting y'all and seeking your pleasure on this matter, so.
Thank you for coming. Dick Ames Eubank speaking. It's a week deadline, getting our attorney to look over the documents and all.
It's not a deadline. I'm not giving you a deadline at all. I'm saying I can't tell you how long this offer's on the table. Like I said, last year, we were leasing and going strong, and without too much notice, you know, they decided we're in a good position, we're happy with our position right now, and we're gonna cease leasing operations at this time. I'm not an employee of Talisman Energy. I'm an independent contractor, so I don't get to sit in on board meetings and find out what their strategies are and where they're going next. I am just here to negotiate between the company and landowners, so I only know what they tell me.
Do you have an extra contract you can
Yeah.
leave? And you have a contract, so.
Yeah, they have electronic copies of it, so they can be distributed. What you'll find in that is there's the Producer's 88, which is the typical form that is required by the state. Almost everything in the Producer's 88 is amended in the next document, the addendum. That sets out all the terms and the conditions, and then there's the order of payment followed by a W-9.
And you'd have to revise it anyway, learning that, you would have to revise it anyway, learning that, part of those acreages retain.
Right. Well, yeah, I would need to revise the legal description, yes. And the overall acreage proposed for lease.
Well,
Not
there's,
enough time to read this right now.
yeah, there's no CNA, of course, so.
No, there was no, you know, after Virgil was hired.
But knowing, you know, what y'all do about this area, and how can I do a better job of presenting, at least to you, that does not conflict with what the corporation is all about? Are there concerns that I can take back to Talisman and say they would like a lease that includes this, and, or?
Candidly, in my opinion, we're gonna need to consult with our legal attorney in this before we proceed. I think we have an interest in it, or we wouldn't have been reserving it, but I don't know if we're ready to make a decision tonight without consulting with our legal counsel in that.
Not knowing much about the corporation and its histories, can you give me a time frame on how that process would take?
Well, we need to, first we need to determine what attorneys we want to use. We have a real estate attorney that acts in regard specifically to real estate. Well, he thought it would be Rancho Grande, this would fall within, Mr. Berger's, realm of what he's doing. I don't know if the board would want to do that, but to answer your question, he's pretty expeditious in his reviews and all. I don't think it'd take a long time to do.
And we've had a lot of clients using Mr. Berger, and so he's familiar with our lease, and, you know, we have a relationship established with him already, so, you know, as far as expediting is concerned, he would probably be able to do that.
So it would be a matter of review and maybe some negotiation, and then on the agenda for consideration and action. So
Is that something we can do outside of the auspices of a meeting? Can I meet with someone independently, or does a quorum need to be in effect to have negotiations, or?
Well, it's yet to note all of them. One, if we have to have, the committee has to approve one or several to negotiate and contract, and or if we can't meet outside of here and have more than 3 present, because it constitutes quorum, we'd have to post a meeting and all for the open meeting record. So I don't know what the board preference is gonna be. Is gonna want to appoint a few individuals to meet with Mr. Berger to discuss this, to bring back a recommendation next time, or what the proposal is gonna be. It would probably be behoove us to do something to that extent.
Well, my question would be, could we even do that considering the way that's worded here?
At this point in time, it's just a presentation, and also, if we can't take any action on this, but we can, two of us can go meet with Howard Berger, or so, as long as we don't have a quorum, to discuss with him and come back and make a recommendation at the next board meeting. But we can't have a quorum go over there and do it, so, if there,
Well,
I'll be glad to go.
why don't we, you know, the board select, you know, 2 people, and we'll meet with Howard, and depending on the recommendation that Howard gives, then, you know, if he tells us that we can call a special meeting, we can do so in a matter of 72 hours.
We'd have to have a special meeting on that,
Yeah.
otherwise it.
When is the board's next scheduled meeting?
second Monday.
Second Monday in May.
Yeah, I have one gentleman volunteer to be part of the committee, go meet with Howard in regard to the presentation tonight. Have anybody else who wants to volunteer? If it benefits y'all and it's approved, I will go with in that place, if that's okay. So, we appreciate yours, so what we're gonna do is a couple of us will go meet with Howard in regard to this proposed lease. We will, after that, we'll review, set up a time to schedule another open meeting, schedule it, have a discussion, probably go into executive session to discuss it a little bit at that point in time, come out and make a proposal to you.
That would be great. And any further correspondence, should I just see through Mr. Ramirez?
Yes.
Okay, through the executive director's office.
Yeah.
Outstanding. Just a question, you know, I proposed a no surface clause to Talisman, just blanket no surface, and they weren't comfortable with that. We felt like the 500-foot no surface would, in almost all cases, be sufficient. Can I get some input on whether or not you think that would be adequate? Or do you feel like you need some more
I prefer to
protection?
discuss it with our legal counsel before
Understood. Well, I thank you all for your time and for your consideration and moving me up.
So
on
I
the
think
agenda.
we appreciate you coming in, and thank you, sir. If there's no further items, we're gonna go back.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much.
Have a good evening.
We're gonna go to item D, discussion consideration, of board procedures to be taken on beer warehouse properties, auction or to keep it, lease it, continue renting, or sell property. Now then, I guess lease it would be to lease it out to somebody else to do subleasing. We would then continue to operate it, rent it out ourselves, or to sell it.
So, that's my opinion. We should.
That's how I feel, we shouldn't be in that kind of business. FEDC will form to do that.
No, not that far. I mean,
Any other thoughts from the board members?
Well, my thought is our name has the word economic development in it. And once we kind of get this all kind of sorted through, we really have to get busy seeking, recruiting, and getting people to, do business with us. And I would agree with Mike. I know some of the reasons why it was probably done in the first place, but when you look at the numbers, and we just kind of, while we're on this subject, the total, since 2006, since the project came into being, the total amount of rent on that project was $40,240. The total amount of expenditures, but there has been some items subtracted out of this report for depreciations and things that you might understand, but it shows $22,113. That doesn't include the acquisition cost of buying the facility, getting it up and going. So without a doubt in my mind, when you look at the acquisition cost, the construction, we're still in a hole. And we don't need to be in a hole. Matter of fact, some of the contracts that we've signed have no performance clauses in those contracts whatsoever, meaning previous contracts. And that's very, very important that we have performance contracts that are based on job creation in anything we do. We're not just a free money giveaway corporation. We need to recoup our cost and more to be able to invest in the community for future opportunities. And, we've spent a lot of time, I know, trying to decipher everything, but really and truly, we're getting real close to getting to that next phase, and that's really getting out there and promoting what we have available. And so all of that said, we're losing money on it. And we don't need to have an economic development group losing money, just to lose money.
We're not in the real business.
And it's a great little facility. We've had a number of functions there. But I do believe that possibly somebody could acquire it and do something. And maybe even build some additional things there.
Add to it.
Any other further discussion on?
Include that warehouse that's separate from it, that's all on one property.
Well, we need to move forward.
All right. Well, I would move that we consider selling that property and getting it off our hands.
I have a motion by Mary Helen Hickey to list the warehouse property for sale at reasonable fair market value. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Matt Curtis. Is there any further discussion? I have a motion and a second to list the beer warehouse property for sale at fair market value. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passed. E. Now we're gonna do it to the depot property.
Didn't it have more of a historical value with the historical society look at that, or we'll take care of that?
I-
Do they not want it?
I've met with some members of the Historical Society. I went and showed them the facility, and they indicated interest in it. I said, well, you know, y'all don't have a location, you know, to have meetings and so forth. I said, this would be ideal for y'all. I said, you know, and they indicated that they were interested, depending on what, you know, what type of agreement we would work out, either, you know, lease it to them, or
They wanna lease
deed it
it.
to them, or whatever, you know. They said whatever, you
They
know.
want to trade it for a pond out on the.
Yeah, exactly, with catfish.
Can we legally donate that land since it's owned? I know like if it's a school, you have to sell property, you can't donate it. But does anyone know in here,
I don't know, but I
Mr.
would
Manager
pass.
Scotland, or you know that situation on that either?
Oh, sir, that's, I discussed some of this with Lou Rosenberg on the other property, and it's all gonna be legal issues that they'll have to review and
You don't
then
know
make their
that?
recommendations. Yes, sir.
Okay, so we have previously discussed, and the Historical Society has expressed an interest in it. Actually, we need to determine a little bit more about the legality if we can donate it. Tell it at a much reduced price.
Possibly, my suggestion is
Certainly.
that when we meet with Howard, that might be something we can discuss with them while we're there. You can give us some guidance.
Okay, any other discussions on that item, ladies and gentlemen?
I don't think we ought to be in
When
business
did you be in a-
leasing it. but-
Well, you know, my suggestion to the Historical Society was that, I said, if you look at the one that is in the entrance of Pleasanton, they did the same thing. You know, they have a depot,
Yeah.
then they have a box
But it's in
car.
a much better location. It's on the highway.
Yeah.
But that could be a lease where they take over all maintenance and everything,
Yeah.
if we can't legally sell it, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, I said, we have a lot of artifacts in our office that probably could be displayed over there. I said, you
A lot
know,
of things.
you know, that, you know, people need to see it, you know. So, they were very interested, and we'll proceed with that.
Okay, we'll, maybe some questions with Lou or Howard on that.
Yeah.
So I'll make a motion, we table the item E.
I say.
Motion to be made and second to table discussion and consideration on board recommendation for depot property. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. F, discussion and consideration on board recommendation on skate park. Options are to let city take ownership of it, or
Andy, we're looking at you.
I think,
Once again, I talked to him about that, and under the charter 2.01, it says the city may acquire lands or other properties within or without its corporation limits for any city purpose and fee simple or any less interest or estate by purchase, gift, devise, lease, purchase, or common. What we wanted was to make sure that if there's any records of where we originally got the land, and get Howard to draft something up legally, and then he'd review it. and
I
take
think,
it from-
as I recall, that it was a piece of property that was lost in taxation,
Mhm.
and we purchased it.
But the EDC did, or the
Yes.
city, the EDC?
So, and my, you know, the way I see it, you know, we're not in a position to where we can, keep track of what's going out there, you know.
City maintains it.
I think-
It's in my, anyway, put it in the department.
So,
That's interesting.
I think the city can, you know, maintain it, they can police it, and I think it'll work out much better, you know, than what it is right now, I think. So, I feel that we can proceed with that procedure, you know.
Okay,
Can I ask if that would be as is property, or would y'all be willing to do some repairs? You know, those bathrooms have been, I think, replaced.
Yeah, I know that
Three or
one
four
time,
times
I
at
think there
least.
was, I have seen some estimation cost factors
Yeah.
that were anticipated, you know. And I don't know, possibly once, you know, the city takes over,
We already have one albatross.
we could, you know, possibly look at where we stand financially, and then whatever we might be able to assist in fixing those.
And who's been paying for those repairs?
The EDC. The EDC built those facilities, and then we went out there, repaired them a couple of times.
Yeah,
till,
right.
I think the director said just to board it up.
Well,
Yeah,
that's my point
vandalism.
too.
They
If
destroy
you,
it.
if we just keep repairing it, what
Yeah.
good does it do?
Well,
Yeah.
well,
They're gonna tear it up.
You legally have to have a facility there.
um,
Because it's a park.
yeah. I think,
Kind of around the park does it.
I think really
I think that's true right next door.
Well, but, different.
if you have some streetlights, I think that would deteriorate some of the problems, because it's dark out there, you know, at night. And how the kids hang around there, I don't know, but they do, you know, and it
Because I
has
think it was
created
determined to be
problems.
closed at 8 o'clock, isn't it? Is it 8
Well-
o'clock or 10?
Well, there's no way to close
Yeah.
it. I mean, there's really no way
There's no
to.
stand.
Yeah,
Well, I think if you put signs, you know, and you have a couple of streetlights out there,
But you could even have steel doors on those bathrooms and they could be locked.
It was those
But
big
there are doors, there are
commodes and they ripped
restrooms,
them out.
They tear them open when they get inside, just.
Stainless steel. and they
tennis
ripped
courts,
them
are
out.
there?
if I can pull it back to the discussion here, is,
Yeah, they're in
we need
between,
to decide if we want to do it, if the city may want to do it.
in between the.
Okay, okay.
Are we gonna want to try to do it and then negotiate and need be, are they gonna want title policies, they willing to pay for title policy, what they want to do? Or get simply a deed, special warranty deed or something like that, how we're gonna be wanting to do it? Or even lower than that, a quick claim deed, we get whatever we got, we turn over to you. So there might need to be some discussion with the city, and see if they're even receptive to taking it as it is or whatever, so. What y'all,
Considering that discussion, we need to table that item until more details are determined.
and we'll give Ram maybe authorization to discuss with the city, with managers, mayors,
and then
don't
come up
give
with
anything
something.
away.
See what council will do.
Jason, it's a good thing we have a good table.
We have a motion to table the consideration and action on the skate park. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mary Helen. Is there any further discussion? Okay, I'm gonna call for a vote. Those in favor of tabling, consideration action on the recommendation regarding the skate park, say aye. All in favor, say, all opposed, same sign. Motion passed. We're down to G, consideration and action on board recommendation on County Park.
And this is the park that is next to the sewer line, and I think we've had some discussions on it. I think at one time, the city has shown interest to use it as a, for their materials, you know, to be placed back there. I know that, we have not used it to the full, extent that, you know, one wanted to use it, but then people have always made the comment thinking that, we're right next to the sewer plant. That's true, there's no way to going around there. It's there, the sewer plant's not gonna move, so I think, and the city, in my discussions with them, they've shown interest, that they're willing to do it and take it over. I think
That'd be fine.
So,
I don't know why they bought it in the first place, but.
And
A lot of
then
things
issue
happen in this
with
town.
attorney Stewart.
The only other
All kind of land that
option would be the Park
Oh, sure, the whole-
Foundation, which is part of the city, and then the city can deal with them on if they wanna maybe use it for a possible park or for city usage or something like that.
it's the back part that y'all want to use, isn't that flat
Yeah.
area back
To
there?
The
put
back-
a yard
I'm
maintenance.
sorry. There was two options of discussion. I think we talked to your executive director. One utilizing the back part as a stockpile area. And then the front, I know one of the council members was talking about a dog park.
A what?
A
Dog
dog
park.
park.
walk your dog there,
So,
whatever,
Any other discussion regarding, board recommendation on the Colorado Park? Y'all have a preference what we ought to do?
I think it'd be better served used by the city.
Thank you.
So are you making that in the form of a motion that we?
No, I was just making a comment, sir.
Okay.
I've never lived here.
Move it forward.
So the options would be either to consider city or what? I don't understand what you're,
It's in a flood zone, I believe, the entire park, so we're very limited use
right?
to what you do. So whether the city wanted